Conventional wisdom dictates that there are two things in this life that are guaranteed: death and taxes. I'd like to add one more concept, and I'm sure you will agree with me. Change is the one thing, apart from death and taxes, that you can bank on. And our approach to change and the ease with which we accept those things we cannot control plays a massive role in how easily we can adapt to our ever-changing reality. But to understand change and harness its momentum, we first need to understand how it unfolds. As with everything else in the natural world, which has an ebb and a flow, change is cyclical. It follows a pattern as predictable as the seasons or the life cycle of the butterfly. The author and life coach Martha Beck described change in terms of 4 quarters. The impetus or start of this change she calls death and rebirth. That is followed by dreaming and scheming, then into the hero's journey, and finally the promised land. I would like to overlay the life cycle of the butterfly onto this scheme of Martha Beck to explain to you where we are and where I think we are going. Now, when you look at a butterfly, when you look at the caterpillar, there is nothing there to suggest the animal that it would eventually become. You can look as closely as you like. There are no tiny little wings that are hidden somewhere that just need to grow, or it doesn't just casually drop its legs. In order to change, the caterpillar has to have a complete meltdown. And like many times in our lives, when we are in the death and rebirth phase, everything falls apart. When a caterpillar changes into a butterfly, it does so on an epic scale. It doesn't go into the chrysalis and then just wait a while for its wings to sprout. Oh no, it absolutely dissolves into worm soup. And I'm sure you can agree with me that during those times when everything falls apart, it sometimes feels like we too dissolve into worm soup. When you cut open the chrysalis, and look, I haven't done it myself, but people who have told me that when you cut it open, there's not a tiny insect in there that's changing. You find a gooey, slimy mess. The caterpillar physically dies and dissolves into goo in order to change. Now, this has many parallels to the death and rebirth part of Martha Beck's description of the change cycle. There's always some form of a loss or a death, whether it's a physical death of a loved one or the loss of a job or security. The world as we knew it no longer exists. There's a definite change between before that marker and after it. This impetus for change does not only apply to things that are unpleasant or that we can term as negative. When a woman has a baby for the first time, her identity as childless changes forever. That part of her dies as her new identity as a mother is born. Now, when we are in the death and rebirth phase, it helps to know a little bit about the phases of mourning as described by Elizabeth Kubler-Ross in her book on death and dying, as we have to acknowledge and mourn that which we have lost. Now, sometimes this mourning takes a couple of days, other times weeks, can take years, but no one can decide for another person when it is time to move on. But eventually, as we move through those steps of mourning, we're prepared to leave death and rebirth behind. It helps us to know while we are still in death and rebirth that there's a slogan or a mantra that we can hang on to. And the slogan here is, I don't know what the hell is going on. And that's okay. It very often helps us to just give ourselves permission to experience things for what they are, to tell ourselves that everything is okay. Whatever I am experiencing right now is okay. So in death and rebirth, I don't know what the hell is going on, and that is okay. With and scheming, it's easy to imagine, if you look at the chrysalis, that the creature that will eventually be known as the butterfly is having a great time in there, dreaming about all the places it will fly to and all the different kinds of nectar it will drink. So we, when we are in dreaming and scheming, can dream as wildly as we possibly want to. When we are in dreaming and scheming, we can dream the most wonderful dreams. And if we know how to, we can accomplish them. The great Muhammad Ali said, if your dreams don't scare you, they are not big enough. And during dreaming and scheming, we can dream as big as we want to. We can scare ourselves. We can dream up things that sounds impossible. I mean, if you think about it, Elon Musk had a dream and now he's going to take people to Mars. If he didn't have that dream, it would never have happened. Now, the slogan or the mantra in dreaming and scheming is, there are no rules, and that is okay. So when we are out of dreaming and scheming, when it feels like it's time to start putting things into action, and we get itchy to turn corner and find ourselves in the hero saga. Now, I'm not sure how many of you have read Virgil's Aeneid or Homer's Iliad, but I think we are all familiar with the idea of a hero that sets out to perform some kind of epic task. He very rarely, if ever, sets out on this quest and is back in time for dinner and the 8 o'clock news with his wife. A quest, and by implication, our hero saga, is one step forward, 2 steps back. This is where we implement the plans we drew up while we were dreaming and scheming. And very often, when we see we have to adjust our course, we return or we go back to dreaming and scheming. So there's a lot of interplay between those 2 phases of the change cycle. As we make adjustments to our plans, try them out. If they don't work, we go back to the drawing board. And so we continue to make our dreams a reality. There's a story of a man who was watching a butterfly emerging from its chrysalis. The little creature spent hours shaking in the confined space and then taking a rest, and then shaking as it flaps its wings before resting again. Now, after watching this for about an hour or so, the man started to feel really, really sorry for the butterfly. So he went into his house, fetched a pair of nail scissors, and carefully cut the chrysalis open to help the butterfly. The insect fell on the ground and started walking away awkwardly, a fat, plump little butterfly with limp wings. Any minute now, the man said to himself, any minute now, and it will fly away. But the butterfly didn't fly away. It couldn't. You see, in order for the butterfly to fly, it has to squeeze fluids into its wings, and it does so during this struggle to emerge from the chrysalis. By trying to help the butterfly, the man prevented it from completing the last phase of its metamorphosis, and the butterfly spent the rest of its life walking around as a fat, squat little insect. Now, the slogan or the mantra during the hero's journey is, this is much worse than I expected, and that is okay. The struggles we encounter during the hero's journey test us and they strengthen us. The author Randy Pausch says in his last lecture that the wall is not there to stop us. The wall is there to see how badly we want things as we enter the last phase of the change cycle, the promised land. Now, this is the dream we dreamt about. This is the vision we had while we were dreaming and scheming. This is where we reach our goal and reap the fruits of our labor. We marvel at the sight of a beautiful butterfly in full flight, especially when we take into account what it had to undertake to get to this point. The most important thing to remember when you are in the promised land is to enjoy it. Enjoy every minute and be grateful. The slogan or the mantra here is that everything is changing and that is okay. So the reason I put so much emphasis on enjoying things when you are in the promised land is because we know that things will and can change at any minute. So there was a king who issued a challenge to all the people in his kingdom. He said, I will grant any reward you can request of me if you can provide me with 4 words that will keep me grounded when I am riding the wave of success, but that will also at the same time give me courage and fortitude when I am feeling down and depressed. And people from all over the kingdom came and they share all kinds of wisdom with the king. But none of it was only 4 words. So the king had to show them all away and no one got the reward. And months later, when the king had almost given up on finding the solution to his challenge, an old beggar limped into the throne room. And as he was limping towards the throne, he was flipping something silver and then catching it. And at first the king thought it was a coin. But as he watched the old man coming closer and closer, it became clear that it was a silver ring. And as the old man came near the throne, he flipped the ring to the king and the king caught it. And he said, now what is this? And the old man said to him, that which you seek, you will find inside, which are very true words in more than one aspect. But in this regard, the king looked inside the ring and there were 4 words, this too shall pass. So when things are going amazingly great, enjoy it, because this too shall pass. But when things are hard to bear, when we are in the midst of a death and rebirth, have courage. This too shall pass. Gratitude is the secret ingredient to live a life of joy. Savor your success. Your stay in the promised land can last for years and years, but it can also be as fleeting as a couple of hours. We have no control over the duration of our stay in the promised land, but we have absolute control over how much joy we can squeeze out of it. The world as we knew it has changed irrevocably. We knew it had to. Many of us sensed that something had to give. The way we as humans were impacting on this planet was becoming untenable. COVID-19 has forced us to take the plunge headfirst into a collective change cycle. Now, my sense is that we have more or less dealt with the death and rebirth aspect of this momentous change, and we now have an opportunity to dream and scheme a new way of doing things, a new, kinder reality that will serve not only humanity, but all the creatures that share this planet with us. This moment in the history of planet Earth offers us a rare occasion to adjust our course. It is up to every single one of us to make sure this opportunity is not wasted.